On this episode of Long Riders Radio, we're going to be talking with professional kindergarten wrangler Wendy Crockett. Coming up! Support for Long Riders Radio comes from DiscountRamps.com. DiscountRamps.com offers a huge selection of power sports products for your ATV, UTV, motorcycle, and more. Everything you need to load, haul, or transport your power sports toys. Long Riders Radio listeners can save 15% off their order by using coupon code LONG. That's LONG at DiscountRamps.com. Well, hey there, everyone. Justin here. Hope you're doing well. Before we get into the episode this month, I wanted to throw a quick thank you out to all the people who signed up to be supporters on Patreon. I really appreciate you. Couldn't do this show without you, and appreciate those of you who kind of answered the call last month. Also want to thank all the people who have been using that discount code for Discount Ramps. You definitely have been helping things out too, so I really appreciate that. And another quick note before we get into the episode. My buddy Tim Allen, up in this area, is running a new rally / kind of grand tour. He's calling it the Pacific Northwest Grand Tour. It's $20. You can sign up at pnwgrandtour.com. He's, like I said, it's $20. He's also asking for an additional $20 donation to a local YMCA. So if you're interested, give it a look. It should prove to be fun. He's really doing it right, I think. So this month's episode, we're going to talk with Wendy Crockett. Now, Wendy, as you no doubt know, was the last winner of the Iron Butt Rally, and she had originally planned to take the family and go on a motorcycle ride through South America. Well, things changed a little bit for multiple reasons, and we'll get into that in the episode. So sit back, relax, hope you enjoy it, and enjoy. This is an interview I'd been hoping to do since the last time we spoke to our guest, and I thought it would have been filled with exciting stories about an epic adventure through South America, but perhaps you heard there was this little pandemic apparently that hit many parts of the world, and plans changed. But nevertheless, this person always finds a way to ride somewhere interesting and do exciting things. Ladies and gentlemen, Wendy Crockett, welcome back to Long Riders Radio.
Thanks for having me back.
So, where the heck are you?
I am in Aguascalientes, Mexico.
And for those of us who are American and don't know anywhere outside of the United States, where in relation to, say, Mexico City is that?
It's about 6 hours north of Mexico City, kind of dead center in the middle. Perfect jumping off point for Central, riding around in Mexico.
Nice. So, obviously, this is probably not where you plan to be right now. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the trip, why things got postponed? There was some stuff other than COVID, obviously, that happened in your life, and you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so, we had intended to jump off on this trip last October down to South America, and with, a tremendous amount of planning, and everything is perfect, obviously, and then that's when the universe laughs at you and real life happens. But we had traveled from South Dakota and had stopped in to see my mom in San Diego area, and she has been on dialysis for a number of years, was on the kidney transplant list for a number of years. And about the time that we were getting into the area, we found that a donor match had been found. Actually from within our Iron Butt community. So that was pretty incredible. And it's a very intensive process, not just the transplant, but all of the follow-up care for several months. So we decided to postpone our trip for a couple of months and stay with my mom, help her through the transplant process, and then the 3 months afterwards of really super frequent doctor's appointments and things like that. So we were in San Diego until early March, about March 10th. And then we're like, woohoo, off we go. And
what happened in March?
So we made it over the border, and that's about as far south as we've gone. So
your mom's doing okay now?
She's doing great.
Awesome.
Yep, night and day.
And I think it's safe to say the person who donated that kidney is probably watching this, and let me just say, this person is a saint.
Awesome. Yeah, there's not even words.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I saw that come out, and I couldn't believe it. It was one of those things that just fills your heart with joy.
Yeah.
In a time where we needed some joy.
Yep. When you think about this community, when people say we'd do anything for each other, literally lobbing out a body part and passing it on to someone else, I think that counts as what an incredible testament to this long distance family we've got.
Absolutely. So I want to jump kind of back in time a little bit, and because when I last talked to you, it was I think I was probably one of the first interviews you did after the Iron Bite rally, and dare say you did quite a few of them after that, and I think it's safe to say you are probably the most well-known person outside of LD writing about the Iron Bite rally. If you just ask some Joe on the street, do you want to talk a little bit about what that time after the Iron Butt rally was like, where you just kind of got thrust into the limelight a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been strange, and I know I used the word surreal several times in our last time we talked, and I think that still holds true. I think a lot of us really enjoy the endurance riding and the long distance stuff for its solitude. So to be, part of me is really excited to introduce people to this thing that I love. And I'm really excited for the opportunities. I do this for a living. I play with motorcycles for a living.
Yeah.
So it is really great, and I appreciate everything that has come along with it. But it's also definitely, I didn't get on my bike on that day, in 2019, thinking this was going to be a massive trajectory changing ride. It's just, I was doing the same thing that all of us do, which is get out there and, sit and twist because we have a passion for doing it.
Do you have any sense of number of interviews you've done about that ride?
I don't.
A lot?
Numerous. No, I couldn't give you a good guess.
Yeah.
But
well, I think you're the only, by my calculations, you're the only person who's eligible to be a back-to-back winner this year in the Iron Butt rally. So at least this year. So I can only imagine the excitement that it would follow if you were able to follow up with another win. So that would be. Granted, you'll be beating me, so it won't be me. So I just hope to keep up with you maybe. So all right, so life was kind of a whirlwind in a lot of different ways, and you were planning this trip with the whole fam, taking two bikes, one with a sidecar, one just without a sidecar. It was like the perfect timing of the trip. You get down south of the border, and then COVID. So what have you been doing? You've been in Mexico since then, basically, haven't you?
Right. Yeah. So we're coming up on a year that we've been down here, and it's been trying to balance wanting to get out and see things and experience things safely, and also not wanting to contribute to bigger problems, in the scope of COVID and everything else. So we've gotten out for, some nice little camping trips and going up to the mountains. I was lucky enough, there's a motorcycle company here in Mexico called Dantes, and they've hooked me up with bikes a couple of times, which has been really cool. I've gotten to do some saddle swords and things like that on small displacement bikes, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's been nice getting out on two wheels and seeing Mexico.
What's riding like in Mexico? How's it different than up here?
It's been great. I don't have any, I think a lot of people have this vision of what it's like in Mexico, and it's all very scary and different, and and it's been fantastic. I have no problems. Lots of, when we plan the trip, obviously there's some areas that are safer than others, and I've planned my rides. You stick on the toll roads, and there's plenty of 24-hour fuel, and the roads are patrolled by roadside assistance vehicles on the toll roads, and everybody's been very nice. And occasionally you have the man-eating potholes, which is no different than like Louisiana or what have you. But I've really, really enjoyed it. A lot of gorgeous country.
So very different. So I think at least recently people have been watching The Long Way Up, where they decided to build a bus and drive through Mexico. Sounds like it's a little more safe than that, needing to do something like that.
Yeah, and I think it's again, there have been rides that I've planned, and I've kind of planned out a route, and then I take a look at this map and say, okay, some of these areas are less safe than others. I'm going to push my route this way or that. But is it impossible to ride across Mexico without taking your life in your hands? Absolutely not. The vast majority of the country is safe and well-maintained roads, and people are nice, and no issues.
This is one of those things I've always thought that you could turn around and say the same thing about the United States. There's places I would not ride my motorcycle through in the United States.
Exactly. And when we were planning the trip to South America, that was my husband's big stipulation. Was he did not want to ride through Central America. And my mom was very concerned. Well, Central America is dangerous. South America is dangerous. And I said, well, that's like saying don't go to Newfoundland because there's shootings in the continent. So, it's sure there's, I wouldn't wander around Chicago at night flaunting money, but I love Chicago. So, a lot of it is just a matter of being wise and being aware, and making smart choices about your travels. But,
Okay. So you mentioned a couple things before about you did you did a Salsour, a couple rallies. You're wearing a shirt that's the Not Right Riders, I believe. Yep. Talk about what'd you do with them?
So Dantes hooked me up with a 150cc bike, and the rallies here are less scavenger hunt oriented and more checkpoint oriented. So I took part in a Not Right Riders rally, and it was, a series of checkpoints throughout Mexico for saddle sore. And man, that was a lot of fun. There's something liberating about getting on a bike that will only go like 52 miles an hour on a downhill if I'm paddling. Like it just removes all sense of hurry, and it's like, well, this is as fast as I'm going now. So it was a lot of fun. It was a very different kind of challenge.
What's the speed limits like on the toll roads? Is it 60-ish or 100 kilometers?
About 110 kilometers an hour. So
comparable.
Yeah.
So you're not going the speed limit basically on that bike.
No, like best case scenario, and it was really good. I mean, it's fantastic for fuel economy.
Yeah.
for sure. But it was like hovering like right below the speed limit.
Yeah.
Was about maxed out, and I held that thing absolutely wide open, pinned for like 21 hours straight.
Wow.
And it was a champ. And I'm 6 feet tall. It was amazingly comfortable for.
Yeah. I'll maybe post some pictures of you on this bike, because it just like, I mean, I'm used to seeing you on the FJR, and it's just like, that's a small bike.
Yeah. Where's the rest of it?
Yeah. But it's a naked bike. I mean, it's a run around town bike, basically.
Yeah.
How I describe it. And so is Dantes, is it Mexican built, manufactured, everything, or?
It's a Chinese company,
okay.
But they're Italian engineered.
Okay.
So they're amazingly cool bikes. And then I took a 350 for the solstice ride. I did a saddle sore for the solstice, and the 350 is great too. And they're looking to get into the U.S. market. So
I say I've never heard of them. So
yeah, they're actually all, being from California, having a shop in California, my first question is, but will you pass emissions in California?
Yeah.
And they said, actually, that's how they designed them, was with California emissions in mind, with the intention of moving into the US. So, fingers crossed, they're really cool little bikes. And I'd love to see, we're just kind of starting to see that tip back in the US from everybody going bigger, 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 to more people saying, you know what, it's a lot of fun to have a little bike that I can just toss around.
Is it? Do they have plans to make something like 700, 800 cc, or are they sticking with the smaller stuff?
They're small displacement for now. I don't know that they have any plans to get substantially bigger, but yeah, we'll see.
Interesting. Okay, so with the Not Right Rally, or the Not Right Riders, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Not Right Riders. Is that part of IBA Mexico? Is that a different thing? Because you've been hanging around with the IBA Mexico folks too.
Yep. Yeah, it's an iron butt situation.
Okay, so talk about the IBA Mexico a little bit. What kind of stuff are they doing similar stuff to the IBA up here, or what's the deal?
They're I think, like everybody else right now, trying to balance being safe and responsible, and also trying to help everybody not lose their minds being stuck at home forever. So they do a lot of rallies, but again, not quite scavenger style. So they're just starting to try to introduce the scavenger element here. It's a little bit more complicated with as far flung out as everything is. Yeah. And there's a few more kind of wild cards when you're trying to organize that style of rally. But they do a lot of checkpoint style rallies and the different, displacements and vintage stuff. And so they've been working hard to try to keep events going on often enough, but still while having, they'll have a check-in process that lasts 4 days to try to keep everybody separated enough.
And that rally you did, I was reading there was like 300 people in it.
Yeah.
Like, good grief. That's a logistical challenge right there.
It really was. So trying to stagger everybody out for their check-in and their tech inspection and all the rest of it. And then their tech checks are a lot more intensive than they are in the US. Just a lot of times the basic maintenance that happens here is not quite to the same level as we would typically hope in the US. So it's a really, really intensive process that they have to get through, which makes it a lot more time consuming. So yeah, it's logistically, it's been a rough year, definitely, but they've done an amazing job of still putting on a couple of really big, cool events and keeping everybody appropriately distanced. So
what are most people riding down there?
Just in general?
Yeah, you show up here to an LD event and it's BMWs and a couple Harleys here and there, Yamaha. What kind of bikes are they riding?
I thought you asked where they were riding.
Oh, sorry. No, what kind?
Mexico. There's actually there is obviously a ton of small displacement stuff. The big market share down here is a company called Italica, which is something that's actually made here in Mexico. But the vast majority of people, the motorcycle is a tool, it's not a toy. So we do see a ton of BMWs and things down here, because I guess Mexico has a more advantageous trade agreement with Germany than with Japan as opposed to the US.
Interesting.
So yeah, relatively few Japanese bikes, but a whole lot of BMWs. So.
Huh. So to buy your next BMW, go to Mexico and ride it up.
Exactly.
So what's your plans? I mean, are you coming home anytime soon, or are you planning on staying down there? What's going on?
It's kind of a question mark right now. We've got in preparing for the trip, we had a timeline in mind. So we put our entire life in storage and sold our house, and we have nothing to go back to. We write a check to the storage guy every 6-8 months. But it's like crazy cheap to live down here. My job right now is full-time kindergarten, distance learning, rodeo clown. So I can do that anywhere. So it's sunny here. It is pleasantly warm, as opposed to South Dakota, where all of our things are in storage. Not warm. No. And it's where we are in Aguas Calientes is faring really well with COVID, as opposed to
South Dakota,
as opposed to South Dakota, as opposed to California. So this is a pretty decent option right now, but it really is just holding pattern.
So the trip is still on, technically, just on hold?
Yeah, but I mean, we're kind of waiting to see when the world rights itself and, what we can squeeze back out of this trip when that happens. But I tell you what, I'm as disappointing as it is to have not seen the trip through as envisioned. I think I'm in a lot better situation than the vast majority of people, because you look at overlanders that were in Peru, for example, and the Peruvian government was like, we're shutting down right now. I don't care how much food you have. I don't care where you have to stay, which was, it was a aggressively wise decision in retrospect, but it put a lot of overlanders in a really, really difficult situation where they can't get home and couldn't even necessarily get to some place where they'd be able to sustain themselves.
Well, and if they are, they're flying back. They're not, they're leaving all their bike there and everything else. So
right. A lot of people had a really difficult situation trying to dispose of vehicles that they were not legally allowed to dispose of, because that's not how the import works. We were extremely lucky in that regard. We didn't get stuck. We didn't end up having to, offload our bikes or anything like that. But also not having my brick and mortar motorcycle shop. I mean, it was a miserable time trying to keep a retail establishment open right now. So it's, all things considered, we're faring better than I think a lot of people are right now. So.
Yeah. What one question I wanted to ask you: who's been on the cover of more magazines, you or your daughter?
That's a good question. It might be about a tie right now.
So you want to explain where that question comes from?
She ended up on the cover of a French sidecar magazine. And I had snapped a picture of her. We went to a town called Real de Catorce, which is, if you've seen Once Upon a Time in Mexico, it's the little town where that was filmed. And I caught this beautiful moment where it was a kind of a dark, cloudy sky, but the sun was breaking in from behind, and this big church tower was lit up perfectly. And I have a 5-year-old, so I'm sitting there for many long minutes. Don't make a nice face, like a nice smile. Do you have a nice smile? Can you not? And after all of this, I snapped this one picture that just turned out gorgeous. And, it's so funny because it just looks like this beautiful moment. And here's me trying to goad a pleasant face out of her. But
I didn't realize you took the picture too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Somebody had seen it on one of the motorcycle sidecar groups on Facebook that had a connection to this French magazine, and they ended up doing a big article about her, and she was on the cover of the magazine. So
is she still digging riding in the sidecar? And
She is, and I think the more time goes on, and the more she realizes how unique that is, how many people are interested in that, and how few people ever see that or have that opportunity. I think, she really, really is embracing it. She's always enjoyed it. She's ridden in it since she was 4 months old.
Yeah.
But I think it's different when you're really small and this is just transportation that has always been there, versus when your world starts to get a little bit bigger and you realize that this is something special.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The whole, just being a kid nowadays is just got to be such the weird thing. And I can't imagine going to kindergarten via Zoom. And I definitely, my daughter's a little bit older than your daughter, so it's a little easier for us. But on behalf of anyone who's a parent out there who has had to wrangle a child onto Zoom and keep them on task, you deserve quite the praise, because it's not an easy thing.
It has been an amazing couple of months where you spend 20 minutes every day listening to the poor teacher saying, whose dog is barking? Is somebody's sister screaming? Please, somebody, okay, we've seen all of your toys, now put them down. Now we're going to spend 4 minutes doing math.
Is her online school, is it in South Dakota?
It is.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So
that's going to be a very interesting, that's not a backdrop. That's just where I'm at.
It is really funny too, because they'll have assignments that are like, and now, we'd like you guys to go out and build a snowman and take a picture. And she's like, but it's again, we're trying to make decisions and nobody can foresee the future in this very weird scenario. So initially, right now the border is still closed to non-essential travel. So it was like, well, at some point, our intention was to then get back to South Dakota and get her in the school and figure out what happens next. But that point's just not materializing yet this year.
Well, so what happens? And you can not answer this question if you don't want to. What happens if, okay, everyone gets vaccinated, we're going, borders are open, and it's March, April, and you've got a date in Provo, Utah in the end of June. So is your plan just to basically leave stuff there, fly back, get on the rally bike and go? What's your plan?
So I can't really do that because of the way the vehicle imports work. If my vehicle import is attached to my visa, so if I leave the country, the bike has to come with me.
Oh, gosh.
Otherwise, I've essentially abandoned it, and then it just gets confiscated, in theory. So it does complicate things, and that's why we haven't been attempting to move back and forth across the border. I know some people have had luck getting in, but right now, we're happy and content, safe. And it's super duper cheap to be here. So I don't want to leave on my bike and then I can't come back.
Right.
So, it's not quite as easy as just jumping on a plane and then flying back. So I don't know. There's a lot of things up in the air right now, just waiting to see how things look in a couple of months.
With all of us, I think. You just a little bit more so than the rest of us.
Yep. Because if they just keep booting the border closure out a month at a time, right now it's closed until the end of February. So the question is, what happens if they keep the border's still closed and I come up there to start doing some rallies, and then I can't come back. Then I have to decide what next. Then we have to figure out.
The concern for you is not getting into the United States; it's getting back to Mexico, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I think the customs just needs to realize that there's a little different definition of essential travel for long-distance motorcycles. Right. Just come to that realization, we'll be fine. Well, gosh, the time has flown. Did I miss anything that you've been doing that's interesting in the past since the last time we've talked that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. Just the handful of rallies I've ridden down here, and a handful of standalone rides that have been really cool, and waiting for the world to open.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about doing this show during COVID is there's not a lot of people riding. So
Yeah.
it's kind of slim pickings when it comes to finding people that are doing interesting things to interview. So I am so happy that you agreed to come on the show again, and can't wait to talk to you about when this adventure finally happens, and hear all the great stories that I'm sure are going to be coming out of it.
Yep. Yeah, you and me both. Let's do this.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Iron Butt Rally winner Wendy Crockett. Thank you for coming on Long Riders Radio.
Thanks again.
Well, if you'd like to get in contact with me, there's lots of ways you can do it. Easiest way is to head over to that website, www.longridersradio.com. And another thank you to the folks over at DiscountRamps.com for their support on this episode. DiscountRamps.com offers a huge selection of power sports products for your ATV, UTV, motorcycle, and more. Long Riders Radio listeners can save 15% on their order by using coupon code LONG, that's LONG, over at DiscountRamps.com. And as always, we need to thank this show's founder, Mr. Michael Cox. I was talking to Mike the other day, and apparently Mike's going back to school. I said, hey, where are you going and what are you studying? And he said,
Distance learning rodeo clown.
Ride safe, everyone.